Hey, what's up guys? Chris VA Travels out here in Plata Maryland, eastern part of the state. And I'm about to visit Rich Hill, a modest home with a lot of history. It's the birthplace of Patriots. It was also one of John Wilkes Booth's stops after assassinating Abraham Lincoln. So yeah, should be neat. All right, so we've got some history right here. And I'll learn more as I take the house tour. But yeah, this thing was deeded back in 1666 to Hugh Thomas. 600 acres, and he called it Rich Hills originally. And back then, used primarily as a tobacco plantation. Samuel Cox inherited the house in 1849. He owned it through the war. And yeah, he was the owner, of course, when Booth came through. Here it is. Okay, you see a big porch on it. And it looks like there was an addition to the right. And then down here, it looks like it's been modified and restored to its 18th century appearance. Yeah, porch is gone. In 1714, the house was purchased by Gustavus Brown, and he's the one who decided to build a house here. And there are no records of when the house was actually built, but they think it was around 1720. It was originally just a 1.5-story structure, had a hipped roof that sat on top of 2 cut stone piers, and had 2 external chimneys. Dr. Brown had 12 children, and they think they were all born here. So yeah, that would have been a bustling little house. Come over here to gather some more information. And of course, they've done their archaeology work. Oh yeah, and they really fixed it up. Pretty rough shape right there. So the Garners were here as tenant farmers, 1916 until 1920, and then just after World War II, 45 until 54. Okay, so here's Roseville and Thomas right here. Wow, 18 children. And here's Margaret and Ethel right here. Rich Hill Farm in the 19th century. Again, Samuel Cox acquired the property in 1849, and he had inherited it from his father. That would be Hugh Cox. Yeah, acquired 400 acres. Wow, there's a windmill on the property behind the house, a pig pen, orchard, cornfield, slave cabins, ice house. Wow, cow pasture. Yeah, quite a complex. And yeah, lots of tobacco. And the old road, I guess, was right over there, and the tobacco was on the other side of it. Another plaque over here. Check this out. Yeah, we've got Booth's Escape. Headed south, Ford's Theater. Went on down to the Mud House. Here we are, Rich Hill. Cross the Potomac. On down, cut through Belle Grove. And that's the site where President James Madison was born. Yeah, cut through Port Royal. That's where he was captured and killed, Garrett Farm. All right, let me tell you the story about John Wilkes Booth stopping by. And this would be just after midnight into the early morning hours of April 16th, right after they had left Dr. Samuel Mudd's house. And Booth was with his accomplice, David Harold, and their guide named Oswald Swan. Swan's the one who led them here. And of course, they were seeking food and shelter. And there's debate on whether or not Booth actually went inside. Oswald Swan said that they went in, but the owner of the house, the Samuel Cox, said they didn't come in. I'm sure he was trying to save his hide, but his story was backed up by a servant girl. Anyway, Samuel Cox did help them out. He hid them in a pine thicket that was nearby, provided them with food, water, newspapers for information. So then after John Wilkes Booth was captured and killed, Samuel Cox was arrested, imprisoned up in D.C., but later acquitted of the charges because there wasn't enough evidence that he had helped him out. So yeah, you can see the chisel pit marks on these stones. And okay, there he is, sneaking a peek out the window. My zoom's not working on my camera right now. I don't know what's going on. But, and then behind it, looks like an old tobacco barn. And, yeah, I don't see any other dependencies, but yeah, let me take the tour. Oh, Underground Railroad stop. On the wall, Samuel Cox, owner of the house during the Civil War, the one who may or may not have let Booth in the house. Again, according to their guide, Oswald Swan, he said that they came into the house 3 or 4 hours because he was waiting on the outside for his money. But yeah, we'll take a look around, learn more about the past residents, one of which was Dr. Gustavus Richard Brown, doctor of George Washington, and he was there at his deathbed when he passed away right across the river at Mount Vernon. And then Margaret Brown, and she married signer of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Stone, who lived nearby in Port Tobacco, a place called Harbour Adventure. Of course, I've got a video on it. I'll put a link to it at the end of the video if you want to check it out. And I'll tell you, this piano is not original, but you'll see it's out of Baltimore. Yeah, but this glass cabinet's original. It was Samuel Cox Jr.'s. And it acquired sometime before 1906. And it's from Sears and Roebuck. Here's the delivery tag. Delivered to Cox's station. Train station not too far away. And you'll see it came out of, yeah, Chicago. And to make things confusing, Samuel Cox Jr. is not the son of Samuel Cox. It's his nephew. His name originally was John. It's his sister's son. She died in childbirth, so Samuel adopted him and changed his name to Samuel Cox Jr. And this secretary is also original, and it goes back to before 1849. And it stayed in the Cox family hands up until this past summer. Here's the transport tag from out of New York to down here in Charles County. This is Samuel Cox Sr.'s mother-in-law, Lucy Cox. So the Cox married the Cox. Yeah, Samuel married his cousin, and her name was Walter. This is the oldest known picture of the house, and I don't know the year, but Samuel and his wife Walter Cox, were sleeping in the addition on the right when John Wilkes Booth arrived. And you'll see all the add-ons going back. The very back building is the kitchen. Docent said this is real silver. Nice. Thomas Austin Jones, referred to as the foster brother of Samuel Cox, and he's the one that aided John Wilkes Booth and David Harold for 4 days while they're in that pine thicket right up the road. Lucy Beale Cox, the daughter of Samuel Cox Jr., and yeah, she's getting married here at 1904. Here's that Cox station I mentioned earlier, where the cabinet was delivered. Nice back on this thing. Doesn't look too comfortable, but drawing from 1890, when it was in its full grandeur. And you'll see, yeah, when it had the porch on it, the addition, the breezeway behind it, leading to the kitchen behind that. And they think originally when the Dr. Gustavus Brown had built it back in the 1700s, there was just the main portion of the house and then the kitchen by itself back there.
A couple rails have been replaced, but these floors are original and they're going way back to when the house was very first built, 1729. Upstairs, this room's dedicated to the architecture of the house. This display is of the parlor wall we were in downstairs, and this is the brick insulation. Yeah, I don't know what any of this means, but I'm seeing parts of the house going back to 1714. This is showing you how dendrochronology is done, studying tree ring data. They think this is a deer print on this brick. The ceiling of the room we'll be going into next. If you're an architect, you'd enjoy this place. Again, these interior walls going back to the 18th century. Scarf joint connecting these two long sills, and you'll see the pegs here help holding them together. Gustavus Brown, first builder and owner of the house, and this original painting is in the Smithsonian. First wife Frances, and they had 12 children together, and she's the great aunt of George Mason. Their son, Reverend Rich Brown, and he's the one who inherited Rich Hill after Gustavus died. Second wife Margaret, they had 2 children, one of which was also Gustavus Brown, the physician to George Washington. And their second child, Margaret, I guess they named both children after themselves, but she's the one who married Thomas Stone, signer of the Declaration of Independence. Family tree. And interesting story, Gustavus had 3 children die prematurely, and all 3 were named Gustavus. The first 2 sons, named Gustavus, died in infancy, so decided to name the next son Richard. He survived, so thinking the curse had been lifted, he named the next son Gustavus. He also died in infancy, so yeah, he then gave up. But when he married his second wife Margaret, it took a gamble and named their son Gustavus. He survived, and of course he's the one who went on to be George Washington's physician. Okay, on to the next room that's dedicated to slavery, and over the years, 109 enslaved on the property. Mary Swan, the servant girl who testified that homeowner Samuel Cox didn't let John Wilkes Booth into the house. She was 15 years old at the time. And I don't know if she's related to the Oswald Swan, but they had the same last name. Here's an audio recording of someone reading her statement. I'll play you about a minute of it.
Statement of Mary Swan. April the 26th, 1865. Bryantown, Maryland. May Swan, colored girl, living at the house of Captain Samuel Cox, 4 miles from Allen's Fresh, Maryland on the Centerville Road, states, I remember some men come to our house on Saturday night before Easter Sunday. It was almost day when they came. The chickens had begun to crow for day. The men were both standing in the yard on the grass. I did not see their faces, but saw their clothes. One of them had on a pair of light pants, and one of them had on a black coat. One had a stick in one hand, and he was leaning on it. It was at his left side, and he was leaning on it. They were standing in the yard when I went to bed. There was 2 of them, and another man was standing back.
Some historic homes in eastern Maryland. This is Sotterley Plantation, oldest plantation in Maryland. This is Smallwoods Retreat here in Charles County. Mulberry Grove, again here in Charles County. And all these homes were lived in by the Brown family descendants. Tudor Hall in St. Mary's County. It's the home of St. Mary's Historical Society. A quiet church in Stafford County. The oldest child, Frances, is buried underneath with her husband. And this one is called Ellerslie. Araby, and this was owned by the cousin of Frances Brown, who married George Mason IV. And finally, LaGrange, with some add-ons to the side. And you can catch some of these houses during Garden Week. Bedroom of Samuel Cox Jr., again the son of Samuel Cox, the one who owned it when Booth stopped by. You'll see this bedspread stitched together because back then the looms were only but so wide. Here's his death certificate. Haversack on this fold-up portable chair. Samuel's only brother, Henry Robertson. And remember, Samuel Cox Jr. is technically the nephew of Samuel Cox Sr. Anyway, he died during the war during the Second Battle of Hatcher's Run. He served Company B of the 2nd Maryland Infantry of the Confederate States of America. Eastern Maryland was pro-Confederate. Father again, Samuel Cox Jr. Yeah, so some period items on display. Washstand right here. Here he is again as a young man, Samuel Cox Jr. Display here of Booth and his co-conspirators on the escape. And yeah, you can read it all if you come visit. Couple pieces of furniture on display in the hallway here. I'll just show them off. Pretty comfy looking settee. I'll just walk you through the gift shop real quick. And some Mount Rushmore salt shakers if you're interested.
Okay, wow, this place was kind of a pleasant surprise. A lot more in there than I expected. Look at the back of the house. Outhouse with the moon on it. Barn's not original, but I'll just walk back there, take a quick look at it. And where the flags are, we'll get closer to them. They think that may be where the slave quarters were. All right, so old barn. And okay, yeah, you can tell this is kind of newer, but I just wanted to take a look at it. It's got a trail going off right there. I don't know if that, wow, there's almost like trenches right here. Yeah, right here, it almost looks like trenches, but I believe this was a road going way back. Lots of pines back there. And yeah, there's not gonna be anything down there. I don't need to walk that trail. Yeah, as I say, it might have been the site of the slave quarters. Obviously, they've been doing some digging back here. And if you find yourself out here in Eastern Maryland, there's a lot to visit. Besides Rich Hill, you've got Harvard Adventure, home of Thomas Stone, signer of the Declaration of Independence. Mount Aventine, a little further up the Potomac. Check their schedule because I don't think they have set times that they're open. I think they're just open on events. But there are several through the summer. You go a little further up, you've got Marshall Hall. Also, Port Tobacco is a really nice place to visit. So yeah, I'm gonna be back up here. All right, so that wraps it up for Rich Hill. Like I say, kind of a pleasant surprise. Nice stop off, but yeah, I'm gonna hit the road, head back to Virginia, and see you guys on the next one.